The idea of women not being well represented in video games has been made a false point of contention. Disingenuous people will have you believe that women are not welcomed in the realm of video games. Their presence is not an issue. It doesn't matter what you are. What matters is who you are as a person, and unfortunately, a lot of female characters recently introduced have failed in that department. But to determine what is wrong with them, let's first analyze what makes the success of a male character. Male characters are the definition of rags to riches. They often start relatively weak and earn power through trials. When they do have power, there's often a focus on how they have to use it well or how they need to use it properly for the sake of others. There's also emphasis on hardship and difficulty, which in the context of video games is part of the essence of the medium. Modern female characters, on the other hand, have an habit of lacking these elements. They're often really powerful, and such power is acquired really quickly without much effort. They also seem to carry a bow most of the time. Jokes aside, it is not the victory that makes us love the character. It's having hardship, then transitioning to victory that makes it work. There is also an inferiority complex floating around. The coming of these new characters seem to happen at the expense of pre-existing male characters. There's a good quantity of hatred floating around. To boast oneself by bringing down others and being needlessly aggressive. The neglect of good pre-existing female characters by the media is also noticeable. Journalists will mention that Lara Croft was there but was just a sex symbol for horny teenagers to gawk at, but forget every example that brings down their argument. That's why we're going to focus on characters that excel at representing their group, Aya Brea and Samus Aran, the Deadly Blondes. Let's start with the less well-known of the duo. Aya first starred in Parasite Eve, a game based on the book of the same name written by Hideaki Senna. Square Enix, which at the time went by Squaresoft, created this weird mixture of what was popular at the time. Final Fantasy for the JRPG elements, and Resident Evil for the horror. In the middle of all of this rests Aya Brea, an NYPD agent who is thrown in the middle of an event that leaves her out of her depth as mutated creatures suddenly appear in New York in the middle of the Christmas season. The first interesting detail about Parasite Eve is the promotional material. It features extremely sensual depictions of Aya and the antagonist, the titular Eve. There is also strong maternity imagery throughout the entire work. What's great about the art of Tetsuya Nomura is that despite his weird taste for fashion trends, he's a dedicated and talented artist. His style might not work with a more classic JRPG like Final Fantasy, but the urban style works perfectly for a modern day setting. The sexual nature of the art is also in good taste. Despite what modern scholars would have you think, sexuality and appearances are intrinsic to the female nature. Hell, nobody likes someone who isn't well groomed and looks like trash. Aya is feminine, yet strong. Her stare is intense and she wields weapons in a lot of the art, giving a sense to the power she possesses. It's the same energy as Bayonetta, sexual but in control. The only moment she might not look in control is when she's faced with the darkness that contrasts her. Amusingly, it's mostly bait and switch. Outside of her dress in the first game and 2 shower scenes, she's most often wearing professional but interestingly designed modern clothing. What really makes her interesting, however, is the dilemma she faces with Eve. She possesses the same mutant ability as her and wonders if she is going to succumb to the dormant cells that give her abilities. She's conflicted and scared and wonders if she's a monster. Fears that are corroborated in a bad ending. When she eventually wins, you feel good for her. In terms of characterization, Parasite Eve does a better job of developing her. She gets 3 lines when she inspects items in the environment instead of the typical one. This time around, you get far more insight into her personality and her tastes. From her thoughts about her past events, to how she gears up, and in a really small dialogue sequence, what she thinks of men. She mentions that she doesn't understand the appeal of board games, but boys will be boys, she supposes. She escapes the trap of modern female characters that need to put down men whether they are good individuals or not, therefore committing the sins they accuse others of doing, and despising people just for being part of a group. She's a really entertaining character, and it's sad that the series ended on an average spin-off that assassinated the character. Actually, now that I think about it, it's Samus Aran all over again from Metroid Other M. I'm not a Puritan, I enjoy the feminine form as much as the next men, but Third Birthday transformed Aya into a weak person that is sexualized in a way that's tasteless. And yes, I'm aware of the plot twist of the Third Birthday. It's still trash. In the context of today, it doesn't bother me as much in hindsight. We now have New Age Puritans that are scared of the feminine form, but the other extreme doesn't work, although it's not as bad. That version of Aya just doesn't fit the context of the situation. It's like all those black women twerking into the McDonald's. Now is not the time. Not that I would eat there, but because McDonald's is just garbage. That version of Aya would honestly be better suited for hentai, especially if she's with a big ugly bastard. In all honesty, I warmly recommend that you play Parasite Eve. Now we can dive into Samus Aran. No, not that way. I would like to start by clearing up a myth that came up because of Other M. Samus always had personality. She just expressed it in a non-verbal way, except for Fusion, where she actually has dialogue and cut content from Prime. There's many examples throughout the games. She shows confidence, anger, shock, and determination. Officially, she lost her parents to the space pirates. She holds a personal vendetta towards their leader, Ridley. She spent years training under the alien race known as the Chozo. She also modified her DNA to become more efficient and mastered the battle suit that she wears. She clearly has the credentials. While not pushing the sexual angle as much as Eve, she still dresses pretty well. The skin-tight suit introduced in Zero Mission says everything, and the heels just add to the femininity. Actually, if we're talking about Samus, we should be speaking about everything that's wrong in Other M to understand what's good about that character. I won't harp too much on this. That subject has been overdone, but in Fusion, she mentions a man named Adam. Adam was her commanding officer when she wasn't a bounty hunter yet. His depiction in Fusion paints him as a brilliant military mind, yet when you actually meet In Other M, he's an incompetent fool and you wonder why Samus follows him. She listens to him even when his plans put her in danger. A good example would be the moment he forbids her from using her various suit while entering a volcanic area, knowing full well that the suit is heat resistant. The game also mirrors Aya in Third Birthday, a useless blonde who always needs rescuing. Wait, don't turn off the video yet, let me clarify something first. The trope of women being saved by men is not an issue. That's part of our natural dynamic. Have you seen a woman fight a man or do physical labor? Yeah, that's what I thought. Only exceptions perform well, and Samus was one of those exceptions. Story-wise, it doesn't make sense for her to be like this. She's far too experienced. The main issue with Other M is that it completely contradicts her ability and progression. The title takes place between Super Metroid and Prime 3, even though Nintendo ignored the Prime series in that timeline. It makes no sense for her to be so sensitive and clumsy. You're trying to tell me that beforehand she was bending over Ridley, and now she freezes when she sees him. Some will say that the graphics were not advanced enough to see what she was thinking, which is an excuse that doesn't stand because in Zero Mission and Prime she clearly handles Ridley well. There's also the fact that Other M has terrible maternity allegories, unlike Parasite Eve.
The baby! The urgency of babies crying. Because when you need crazy women to come save you, you just broadcast crying babies out of fucking space!
Other M is for Other Mother. Metroid Other M also spells out Mom, and the adventure takes place on the bottle ship. They try to go for that maternity angle with the baby Metroid, but nothing comes out of it, and it just ends up flat. 1,000 memes were spawned from that terrible character dynamic. Another point of contention is her appearance. It seems similar to the other titles, but there exist details that ruin it. The main thing being the heels. She always sported heels or platforms, however, a point was made to not make them too high, but now they have a height that rival the most experienced of strippers, which in turn creates a discrepancy. Samus is about 6'1". With the armor, she's 6'2", 6'3". But now she barely fits in it. She's about 5'11" now, and doesn't fit in the suit, even with the giant heels. That's a change done for all the wrong reasons, that brings tons of issues. I get it, you wanted to make her a small sexy blonde with a beauty mark that sports heels. But it wasn't handled well. The other games managed to do that without issue. Resident Evil 3 was also a good example. Jill wore a skirt, and the devs admitted they wanted to make her sexy, so she was given a casual outfit. The excuse is that she was caught off guard by the outbreak, so she only had her street clothes. That was a nice way of making a woman appealing without creating discrepancies, aka a giant clusterfuck. Resident Evil 5 also had the blonde with heels issue. What really makes it stand out was the fact that it was a ridiculous game trying to take itself too seriously, like Other M. Now, however, we can't have nice things, so she now wears a skirt in the remake. Yeah, I know, I didn't know that was a thing either before this game. We've gone full circle. The progressives are now the Puritans. Honestly, the strippers in heels doesn't seem that bad in hindsight, especially if there's an old ugly bastard. Do not let anyone fool you. If you present a well-crafted character, people will gravitate to it. Samus is a gaming icon and is well loved. So is Bayonetta or Jill Valentine. Aya may be less well known, but those that do know her love her, and for good reason.
Do we have a mitochondria counter in the corner of this LP?
And I saw some people in the comments being like, it feels like mitochondria isn't even a word anymore.
It really is just fucking.
It's like, just say the word over and over, and you get neuron inhibition, and the word stops to fire.
Mitochondria.
Mitochondria?
Mitochondria. Mitochondria. Mitochondria.
Mitochondria.
Mitochondria. Mitochondria.
Mitochondria. Mitochondria.
Sperm.
Sperm. Sperm. Sperm. Sperm. Sperm.
Sperm.
Sperm. Sperm. Sperm.